In this video, I'm going to cover the tools that I'm using to develop my current project, Risk and Riches, and that I'd recommend others to use for their 2D games. And if you're making a 3D game, most of this is still applicable, just the art tools would be different. Hello and welcome. My name is Peter. I'm the solo developer behind Growlery Games. I'm currently working on Growlery's first title, Risk and Riches, which is a roguelike deck builder where you must descend into a mine, fight hordes of monsters and demons in order to close a portal to hell, all while building a thriving mining town. Let's get started by talking about something that a lot of people get analysis paralysis over: game engines. I've used custom engines built by myself and others, and I've been using Unity off and on for about 10 years. But after the Unity debacle last year, I decided to try out Unreal and Godot. But I decided to stick with Godot 4.2 for my current project. I chose Godot for a few reasons. First, it allowed me to develop in C#, C++, and GDScript. And second, it made a lot of sense to me. I was able to pick it up and get a lot done, pretty quickly, especially compared to Unreal, which I was playing around with at the same time. And it has all the features that I could need. It's made specifically for game development and nothing else, at least at the moment. And there's nothing hidden within packages or other assets. Most of the basic tools that you'd want are already there and ready to go. And lastly, Godot's open source, which means that I can have a lot of customization in the future if I need it. And it also means that I don't owe royalties or any sort of licensing fees, regardless of how my game performs. And there are two caveats to that, though. One is that if my game is financially successful, I do intend on donating a portion of the revenue back to Godot to benefit the community. And the other is that the way the other two major engines are set up as far as their licensing and royalty structures go, by the time you actually hit those, your game's very successful. And so for a small indie team, just consider yourself lucky. And then, maybe for another game, you can consider, switching to something like Godot. But yeah, I don't think it's as big of a deal as many people make it out to be. That being said, there are a couple of cons with Godot. One major one is the graphics and performance capabilities for 3D specifically. They're not quite up to Unreal and Unity, but for small indies, 95% of us, we don't need that level of capability. And if you're making a game that you think it needs the visuals that Unreal can do, you're probably out of scope already. And the smaller problem with Godot is it's not widely used yet in larger companies. So if indie dev is more of kind of a stepping stone for you to get a game in a AAA or AA studio down the line, the engine specific skills might not be as translatable. Definitely something to consider. All that being said, there's no wrong engine out there. As long as it allows you to build and release the game that you're envisioning, then it's a-okay. I'm loving Godot currently, and I'm looking forward to what it has in the future. They're actively improving it and working on it, especially with 3D capabilities. There's a lot of improvements that have recently been added. But there are dozens of engines out there, and there are even visual scripting engines like RPG Maker and Game Maker have had games that found success as indie titles. So don't get caught up in choosing the best engine ever. It's a matter of preference and project requirements, really. The only thing that I would advise against is creating your own engine, unless there's a really, really, really good reason for it. Like that it's more of a portfolio piece and you're using it to find a job, or there's some crazy mechanic that no other engine can handle, which is extremely unlikely, but there are definitely some examples of that out there. Onto the programming language. I'm currently using GDScript, which is a scripting language similar to Python, but it's custom for the Godot engine. It's very dynamic, and you don't need to use static typing. It's optional. It's been 6 months since I began using GDScript, and I haven't run into a situation yet where I can't accomplish what I'm trying to do from within GDScript. And I do feel that I am much further ahead than I would be over the same time period if I was still developing with Unity and C#. But even though GScript is a dynamic language, I do use static typing and I'm pretty specific with it so that I can avoid bugs and for increasing readability. And I don't have any C# scripts in my current project, but I do use the mono version of Godot so that I can revert back to C# if I need to for any complex algorithms. Most of the mechanics and systems for Risk and Riches are already implemented at this point, so I don't think I'm going to need C# for this current project, but certainly in the future with more complex algorithms, it could be beneficial to use C# because it does run a bit faster for intensive logic and math. But while it can run faster, there are extra costs for marshalling, which is basically just translating from the C#, and sometimes communicating between C# and GD scripts they're a pain in the ass. So it's not always a net benefit to develop in C# with Godot. Now, if you're not using Godot, GDScript is useless for you. It's only for Godot. But for anyone who is using Godot, I definitely recommend trying to use GDScript as much as you can because it is faster development times, and for engine-specific tasks, it is faster performance-wise than using C#. One more thing I'd like to touch on for language is that similar to game engines, there's no wrong language. As long as it allows you to create and release your game, then go for it. When I first started using Godot, I resisted using GDScript as much as I could because I felt that if I used it instead of C#, that it made me less of a programmer and developer, which isn't the case at all. In fact, given the boost that GDScript has given me in terms of development, I'd be less for not adopting it. The only wrong tools are the ones that get in your way. Don't get in your own way because you're worried about something that ultimately doesn't matter. Now, I don't consider myself an artist, but as a solo developer, I have to be. For Risk and Riches, I'm using Aseprite for pixel art. It's only $20. It used to be free if you compiled it yourself, but I checked before filming this video and it looks like only older versions still have that option. It's specific for pixel art, so it has all of the features you need for creating sprites and animations readily available without having to play around with settings like you might have to do with Photoshop or GIMP, and similar other image editors. For someone who's not incredibly artistic, it's easy enough to use, and I've definitely gotten better while using it, both in terms of skill and speed. I can create some simple sprites and make some quick edits, using the tools within Aseprite. But there is still more to be desired, which is why I began using the fourth tool in this list, Pixel Lab. It's an AI generator for pixel art. The developers of Pixel Lab claim that it's okay for commercial use and that it adheres to Steam's policies regarding AI. So as far as I know, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. Now, I debated with myself quite a bit over whether or not to use AI as part of development, but the fact is it's here, it's already being used to increase productivity by others, and so similar to GDScript, ultimately I decided it wasn't worth letting stubbornness and arrogance stand in my way. There are definitely a lot of moral and philosophical questions surrounding the use of AI in game development and in larger with different forms of art and creativity, but as long as the training materials from consenting artists, I don't have any major issues with it. Using Pixel Lab has greatly improved the quality and speed with which I can create sprites for my game, and I've only been using the basic functionalities of it so far. Even though I recently switched to Pixel Lab, there's still a lot of work that I have to do to get the final game art. I create the color palettes, I create the initial sketches to use for the AI to use as a model of what it is that I want. I iterate through the different images, find something that I want and that matches the overall art style of the game, and then I still got to go in and recolor and touch up everything because it's not perfect when it comes out. I still have to make some detail edits and things like that. So even though it's made my art pipeline much more efficient, it doesn't remove the human element at all. Now, I chose to be a solo developer for several reasons, but I plan on expanding my team once it's financially viable. And the first person I want to hire is a 2D artist and animator. But even then, I think that based on my experience with Pixel Lab, it will continue to be part of my art pipeline. It just makes it so much quicker to iterate through concepts of things and to create some decent looking placeholders for my game and future games. And I'll probably adopt more AI in the future as the software improves and as it becomes much clearer with the moral and legal questions surrounding AI. But I don't think it is gonna replace human skill and talent anytime soon. That make game button is decades away from us, and I think any industry where they're in the arts or that has an element of creativity to it is pretty safe, at least in my lifetime. We're not going to see it replace whole swaths of people. But I digress. If you're doing pixel art, I highly recommend Aseprite for $20. It's the best tool out there for pixel art that I could find. And there are a lot of tutorials for it as well if you're newer to pixel art. And if you're interested in adding AI to your 2D pipeline, I'd recommend Pixel Lab as well. It was the best one that I could find when I was doing research. Like I said, developers claim that it's fine for commercial use, and it definitely looked the most feature rich. I'm only using the basic features, but it does tile sets and character rotations and some basic animation stuff as well. And it's pretty cheap. It's $9 a month for their cheapest one. I'm using the $24 one, which is their mid-tier, and the only reason I'm doing that is just so I don't have to worry about how many server requests I'm doing each month. It's far exceeds what I would ever potentially do. This next tool is the fifth one for anyone that's keeping count. It's GIMP. It's free and can be used to manipulate and create images, similar to Photoshop. I don't use it that often, but every once in a while there's something like a splash screen or a logo that I need to refine, and I don't want it to look pixelated, so I can't use Aseprite. I do occasionally use Canva, which has a free online version to create some initial images, but then I'll refine them in GIMP a lot of the times. It's nothing special. I won't go on about it. But it's nice general public license alternative to Photoshop, or other pricier software, and especially if it's something that you're not using that often. For those of you who are making 3D games or considering 3D games in the future, I have used it to create textures for 3D models, so shout out to it for that as a capability. But I mostly use it right now just for branding and not for actual game art. Okay. The last three tools before I get to an honorable mention are what I use for project management. It's Jira, Bitbucket / SourceTree, which I kind of combined into one, and Google Suite. Jira is purely a project management tool where I create backlogs of the tasks and features that I need to implement. As a solo dev, I tend to stick with Kanban boards, but I do plan things out on a timeline similar to sprints and Scrum. So I'll tackle a larger feature or sprint over a set period. The only columns I have on my board are to do, on deck, on hold, which is for anything that I started working on and find there's an unforeseen dependency, or that I want to tackle this as the same time as something else because it's in the same class or system. And then the other columns are in progress, quality check, which is my own code review and play testing often, and done. There are definitely some things I want to improve on my own process, but on the whole, it works for me. It keeps me focused and organized, short term and medium term. But on the long term, right, I'm not getting too granular where I'm going to have to keep going back and adjusting things several times over. I wait until those tasks come closer before I go in and list out everything that I think needs to be done over that next sprint. Jira uses what it calls epics and issues. Epics being the larger features, and issues being the tasks that break it down. I tend to use epics as larger sprints, and the issues as the features in that sprint, which is one of the things I want to change about my own process to make the epics a little smaller and feature based. But the way I'll plan things out longer term is kind of what I had just said, is I don't get too granular, so I won't add the issues to the epic until it gets closer up, and then that way I'm not going back constantly to my backlog and editing things and wasting time on that. The reason I chose Jira is I've used it in the past professionally, and it's fairly widely used, so a lot of the skills are transferable. It's free for teams of 10 or less, and there are similar programs, but one of the advantages I like about Jira is that you can combine it with a few other Atlassian products that I also like. Confluence and Trello are design documentation. I don't use them really as a solo dev, but I do use the next couple of tools, which I combined into one for this list of 8, which is Bitbucket and SourceTree. Bitbucket is a Git-based repository similar to GitHub. I've never really used GitHub other than to pulse things down, but I don't have anything against it. I wouldn't rule out using it in the future. Bitbucket's free though, for up to 5 users. It can be paired with Jira, which is actually not a feature I take advantage of, and you can use SourceTree with it, which is the interface or UI for the source control. Even if you're a solo developer like me, I highly suggest that you use source control if you're not already doing so. I mean, you don't know when a machine's going to go down. It makes it easier to work with other people. It makes it easier to work from different machines if you need to, and it just kind of helps add an extra layer of protection and to your code in case things get really janky and you need to roll back, and just as a general backup. Now, I chose Bitbucket and SourceTree because I'm familiar with them. There are several others out there, and anything's better than nothing. But I chose those because I know them already, and they are free for my size of team and project, and I like things to be under one umbrella. So it's already part of the Atlassian suite, and I don't need to switch from around different accounts or anything like that. It's all just a click away. And SourceTree is by far my favorite source control interface that I've used. And finally, something very basic, but Google Suite. I may do a future video on more in-depth look of my development process, so I'll just kind of keep things surface level here. But every project I start off on starts with a game design doc. Just a few pages, general overview of the game, elevator pitch, list of features, basic marketing research, and then if I think it has potential, that'll become a game bible, which could be tens of pages or more, and a lot more detail on enemies, levels, story, items in the game, stuff like that. And And I will admit, ultimately, the Bible does get abandoned, which is why some folks recommend not doing them. But for me, I find it helpful to, as kind of thinking things out ahead of time. You can catch things even before you get to the prototype that, once you take a couple minutes to think about it, either it doesn't quite work out the way you do, or you can spot some problems early on. And it's a good reference for when you're first putting your systems together and things like that. Something else that I use in the Google Suite for rough UMLs and kind of game flow charts is Google Drawings. It can be pretty helpful if you have some complex systems of how the different classes might interact or different components will interact, and just for kind of user game flow in general as well, having that quick visualization. And of course spreadsheets. I use spreadsheets galore for stats, descriptions, pretty much anything that survives the game Bible being abandoned gets translated over to spreadsheets, because I much prefer reading spreadsheets than I do reading documents. And just in general, right, taking advantage of Google Drive for organization, having things kind of backed up a bit and being able to share with others. Even though I am, for the most part, a solo developer, I do have a few folks helping out, right? Whether it's play testing or helping with like these, getting some B-roll for videos like this for marketing. And so I'm able to share specific folders with those folks and make it easier for that collaboration to happen. And that finishes up the list of tools I'm currently using. But there's one other that I plan on using in the near future, and so I just wanted to give it honorable mention. Audacity. It's open source audio editor. I have very limited experience with it. I used it a few years back for a couple small things. From what I remember, it was fairly intuitive and easy to navigate as a newer user. Now I'm not going to create original music and sound effects myself. So all I really need is something that I can extract clips from, or shorten things up if it's got a long tail, or intro on it, and maybe speed up playback speed or something like that. So nothing complex, and as far as I know and remember, that's all stuff that I can do from Audacity. So I can't quite recommend it because I haven't touched it lately, but it is what I intend on using, and that kind of rounds out everything that you would need for a 2D game or pixel game anyways. Is all the tools I've gone over. That's pretty much all you need. And as far as where to find sound effects and music, because like me, I'm guessing many of you, but not all of you, aren't already composers and Foley experts, but there are plenty of asset stores out there, right? If you're using Unreal or Unity, you have access to their asset stores. Godot doesn't have one quite yet. There are some assets you can get through the Godot editor, but it doesn't have a marketplace the way that Unity and Unreal do. It is something they're looking into. There's Game Dev Market as another option, Open Game Art, itch.io, and plenty others. But those are a few, just in case you have no direction at the moment. And I do plan on getting music packs, I think, for Risk and Riches. I thought about getting an original couple of pieces of music composed, but I don't know that it's worth it for this game. Certainly in the future, music for me is a big thing for setting mood, in the overall game feel. I think it adds a lot, but I don't know that it's worth it for what I need for a roguelike deck builder like Risk and Riches. I think it's a little over the top. But for that, something like Fiverr is an easy option. There's definitely some good folks on there. If you know people, that's always an option as well. But yeah, I think in the future that's something that I'll look more into. And there you have it, the 8 tools that I'm currently using. I would recommend for others as well, especially if you're working on a 2D game, plus a solution for audio editing. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, I'm Peter, the solo developer behind Growler Games. If you haven't already done so, please join me on this journey by giving a like and subscribe. And if this is your first time checking us out, and you'd like to learn more, please check out our original video, which should be appearing sometime around now on the screen. It's more about me and how the studio got started. And yeah, thank you, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.